Today I am going to share with you my #1 snack hack for children. I wish someone had passed this wisdom down to me when I first started my parenting journey. However, it seems a lot of people don't know about this one, so I am sharing with you one of my greatest pearls of wisdom. Does this sound familiar to you? I'm hungry. 10 minutes later, I'm hungry. 10 minutes later, I'm hungry. Especially on school holidays when kids are home and they're bored, you just hear that constantly. And if you feed them snacky foods, it can get very, very expensive. And I hear a lot of parents complaining about how much it costs to feed their children, especially on the school holidays. But I have discovered something amazing. When children say that they are hungry, it does not mean that they are hungry. It means that they want to eat snacks. My children will have their breakfast, and that will be probably breakfast cereal. They might have toast, they might have both. Sometimes it's something a bit more hearty like eggs and bacon, that kind of thing. Once they have had their breakfast, they can have a piece of fruit. And then if they're still hungry, we might have some kind of morning tea snack, which might be a homemade muffin or a muesli bar or something like that, yogurt and oats. Once I have given my children these foods and I know that they really have eaten a substantial amount of food, if they tell me that they are hungry again, I will say, okay, I will make you lunch. Even if it is 9:30 in the morning, which it quite often is by this stage. So I tell them they need to wait. It might be half an hour to an hour between the time they tell me they're hungry and the time that their lunch is ready, depending on what I'm doing and what I'm making. So I make for them a good hearty lunch, so it will be something with a carbohydrate like rice or some good multigrain bread, and then it will have a protein, so that might be chicken or cheese, ham, some other kind of meat, and then it will have vegetables on the side. Any vegetables, whatever that I know they will eat, so maybe like broccoli, cauliflower, corn, a mixture of something like that. What I have found, without fail, this works with other people's children as well, they will have a couple of bites and then decide they're not actually hungry anymore. In which case their food goes into the fridge until they tell me they are hungry again. I have found if I throw out their lunch, about 10 minutes later they will be telling me that they're hungry again. If I keep their lunch and tell them, oh, your lunch is still in the fridge so you can eat that, again, it'll come out, they might have a bite or two. I don't even bother heating it up if they've asked within like 15 minutes of the last time they tried it. They'll have their little bite and be like, oh nah, I'm full, so back in the fridge it goes. I find it'll be there until lunchtime. They'll tell me again that they are hungry and I will say, here is your lunch. They might eat a little bit more of it by this stage, but if it's a really nice big hearty lunch, quite often they still won't get through it, and so it will go back in the fridge. And if they say they're hungry, out it comes again. I've had other friends' kids stay over and visit, and I had one particular friend's kid, and I'd had other friends who had looked after this child say, oh yeah, they eat so much, it's just ridiculous, it's just constantly feeding them more and more and more food. So I was prepared for this, and I was like, okay, I'll make sure I've got plenty of food for this child. And so in the morning it started, and you know, I'm hungry, and that's fine, have your breakfast, have your morning tea. And yeah, then I tried this with them. I thought, well, I'll just give them an early lunch. And I think it was like a spaghetti bolognese, something like that. And they really liked it. They said, yeah, it's really yummy. I made sure I gave them a really big serve, probably about as much as I would eat. So this was like a 10-year-old child. And they ate about half of it and they were full. So I said, oh, we'll just put it in the fridge and you can heat it up later when you're hungry. Because they were that little bit older, they weren't in the habit of saying every 10 minutes, I'm hungry. But when they did mention they were hungry, back out their lunch came. And I think they did end up eating most of the rest of it, but by this time it was sort of early afternoon. So after that it was just providing them a tiny bit of afternoon tea, which really wasn't that much, and they were still pretty full from their lunch. And then they had dinner, and they didn't even finish all their dinner, which I gave them a fairly big serve, but it wasn't ridiculously big. in my experience with this child, that their parent and other people who had looked after them said, oh my goodness, they just eat so much. With my method, they sort of ate a normal amount of food, I felt. It wasn't expensive to feed them because they were just having their breakfast, a little bit of morning tea, and then the cheap lunch that I had made for them, which was a spaghetti bolognese, probably cost like $1.50 with the way I cook spaghetti bolognese, which if you check out my video, Cheap Meals Spaghetti Bolognese, you'll get a good recipe for a cheap bolognese. And yeah, this has worked with all my other friends' kids too, and works with my kids. So if you've got your kids home and they are constantly asking you for snacks, my tip is to give them a good hearty lunch, even if it is early in the day, and that is their food until it's all gone. And you will find you are not feeding them as much, because kids just love snacking on food. And when my children are at the grandparents' houses, a comment I often get is, wow, your kids eat so much. But I know it is because they are tricking you into giving them snacks. Because if you give them things like fruit and crackers and chips and popcorn and all those kinds of snacky things, they just graze all day. So hopefully that tip will save you a lot of money, because snacks are very expensive, but a good proper meal done on a budget isn't.